I don't know if it was mentioned yet in a video that I posted, but I'll be doing kind of like a monthly book review. This is kind of inspired by PewDiePie, but also I did this kind of last New Year's where I did kind of a video of books that I've read on my trip or something. I really liked talking about books I read, so I will be mentioning the books that I've read in this month. Hey, I only read 2 books this month, which is kind of not a lot for me, and like also like it's very slow, but it's because it's the only month I have in Toronto and I saw a lot of friends. In my defense, they were pretty big books. The first one, I don't have the actual book with me because I gave it to my friend Alyssa because she wanted to read it, but I have the sequel, which I'm going to be reading in Vancouver, so I'll just show that. So it's the Outlander series. I finally read the first book. It's a really long series. It's kind of like Game of Thrones, and there's like 9 of them already for the Outlander series, which is insane. So I read the first one. It's the same kind of format except it's blue. I'll show like a Google image of the book that it is. It was about 830 pages, I believe, so not a short book. The book is set in Scotland. This woman, Claire Randall, it's set in 1945, so like right after the war, and she's going on this like second honeymoon with her husband Frank. Whatever, everything's going well, and then she goes to this rock circle and she finds herself in the year...
Yo, it's me editing. It looks like I'm filming on a Nintendo DS, but I'm actually filming on my laptop. I'm watching the show now, so I do know what these dates are. It's 1734.
Frank is like no longer with her because like she went alone. Reason why the book is called Outlander is because that's like what they call her in the Scots language. And okay, so I haven't watched the show yet, so I don't know how to actually pronounce it.
Me again. Now that I'm watching the show, I know how to say it. It's Sassanas. So, yeah. The more you know.
But anyway, so yeah, like everyone, including this man called Jamie. I absolutely adored the book. I thought it was so good. It definitely has kind of like that romancy novel feel to it. I love the historical aspect to it. I also just love the Scottish aspect to it. I absolutely adore Scotland. I love their history. So yeah, Outlander was great. I definitely recommend it if you want kind of like a new series that's kind of like steamy, historical, kind of comical. Like there's definitely some funny parts, but also like very like dramatic at other times, and like you definitely have to remember that it's a period book, so there's things that some people might not be so used to, but I'm like a historical geek, so some things I'm kind of become immune to, which is like not great. But anyway, on to the next book. So the second book I read, which I'm so happy I finally did, is The Last Tutor by Philippa Gregory. And if you've all watched my previous book review, you know that I am obsessed with Philippa Gregory. Like I literally went on like a rant about her because I was like, if you want to read like historical fiction novels, like I recommend her. So yeah, I still do. I will always recommend her books. This book was, I think, one of my favorites. The other Boleyn Girl will always be my favorite, but this one actually might be my second favorite because it's about a side of the Tudor family that I honestly never did that much research on or just never knew that much about, because a lot of the shows that I watch or books that I read don't really talk about this family, and it's the Grey family. And the most famous person in the Grey family is Lady Jane Grey, who was a queen for 9 days and then got executed for her faith by Mary I because she wouldn't stop being Protestant. Like she was very staunchly Protestant, and for those who need like a small history lesson, Mary I was very Catholic, was called Bloody Mary because she had put to death by fire like a lot of Protestant preachers, noblemen, like whatever. So it's about specifically the 3 Grey sisters that are like the last of the line. The Grey family is actually like a direct descendant from Henry VII. Henry VII had 3 kids, or 4, but one of them died, and one of them was Mary, one of his daughters, who at first married Louis XII
of France,
but then he died like soon after their marriage, and then she married for love Charles Brandon, who was the Duke of Suffolk and was also Henry VIII's best friend, or at least like closest advisor, and like he never died by execution, which was like a very rare thing when you were that close to Henry VIII. Mary and Charles had a daughter called Frances Brandon, who was Jane's mother. So they have a direct connection to Henry VIII by like the fact that it's like their great uncle, but also Henry VII, who's like the start of the Tudor dynasty. They have like a legitimate claim to the throne, which is a very dangerous thing to have at the time because like everyone is trying to have the throne, especially when Henry VIII died, because he had a son, but he was really sickly. His son Edward, who was Edward VI, died like when he was 16, so he literally like left the country like in turmoil. Edward VI was very Protestant, so when he died, people were like, we can't have Mary because she's super Catholic and she'll bring us back to the dark ages of Catholicism. Edward VI did name the Greys as his heirs, but the claim was stronger coming from Henry VIII's succession will, because Edward VI was known to be sickly, so people were like, he must not have been clear of head. But they put Jane Grey on the throne anyway because she was Protestant, therefore like following the religion that everyone was following. She got killed for just staying true to her faith even once Mary came on the throne, but also the number of Protestants was like high at this point in the country. So she knew that she had to kill Jane because she was like the image of like the Protestant royalty. But then Mary died after 3 years on the throne, so people were like, oh, okay. And then the clear one was Elizabeth to come next because she was the youngest of Henry's children, and also she was Protestant, so like there wasn't a huge issue. I'm done with the history lesson now. What's interesting about this book is that it follows past Jane Grey, because Jane also had two younger sisters, Catherine and Mary. Catherine and Mary were both Elizabeth's ladies-in-waitings for a long time, until Catherine decided to marry for love Edward Seymour. He was Edward VI's cousin, and Henry VIII's third wife was Jane Seymour, who had Edward VI. So Elizabeth I, like the queen, saw Catherine's love marriage that they had done in secret without her permission to be like treasonous. So they were literally imprisoned in the Tower, then like separated. Catherine had a son. There's a lot, and then yeah, so I'm trying not to like ruin anything, like. So, and then Mary was like the youngest, and she was born like really small, so she never really got past like 4 feet tall because of like a curve in her back.
Hey, it's Nintendo DS again. I did the worst job at pitching Mary. Mary's story was actually really interesting, and all I told about her was that she had a curve in her back, so she was short. Her role in it was the fact that because she was short, she was very good at kind of becoming inconspicuous. She was never really in trouble because everyone saw her like not as a threat because of the fact that she was short. And then she ended up having a love marriage as well with like a literal nobody though, so like that wasn't like an issue. Wow, I'm literally a flop. She had a secret love marriage. That's why it was an issue. It's not just like a love marriage that like Elizabeth was aware of. That wouldn't have been an issue. She also got married in secret because of the fact that Elizabeth was never going to get married because she was never going to be able to marry the love of her life. She literally didn't allow like any of her ladies in waiting to get married, whether or not it was like political, except like maybe one, just for logistical reasons. So that was why everyone was getting married in secret, and Catherine and Mary were just like extra dangerous because of the fact that they were a direct line to the throne. The moral of the story of this story is that Elizabeth is a bitch.
The reason why I really like this book is because I literally didn't even know that Jane, first of all, had a legit royal claim to the throne. I always thought that her kind of plot to be on the throne was one that was solely executed by the Dudley family, and they just decided to marry the Greys because they were Protestant. Now it's just crazy to think, like it just makes a lot more sense as to why they would even try and get on the throne, because I always thought that they had just been executed because they had tried to be on the throne for absolutely no reason. But now it makes a lot more sense, and I really underestimated the Grey family. And also, I just never knew that Jane had two younger sisters, and honestly their lives are super interesting. The book is separated in 3 parts, not equal. The Jane one is really short, obviously, because she dies like pretty soon after and she gets like put on the throne. Catherine's is decently long because her life is like super complicated and interesting and like kind of sad at the same time. And then Mary's is like in between both of them. She's definitely one of the more interesting characters of the Grey family. For those who are wondering, like Gregory definitely does take her own narrative from facts that are there. So she'll take all the facts that are given, all the dates and names that like we know and are true, and she'll create a story with the facts that she's given. The narrative is definitely her own idea and what she decided for each character. That was the second book that I read. Oh, I didn't even say this one was 515 pages.
I didn't film an outro, so thanks for watching. I hope some of you might take my book recommendations to heart. Have a great day.